thought this phase would break you. Not bend you, not test you, break you. Everything slowed down at once. Plans collapsed, people disappeared, effort stopped producing results. You kept moving, but nothing moved with you. That silence, that resistance, that invisible wall, it doesn't just attack your progress. It attacks your identity. It whispers that maybe you're not as strong as you believe. Maybe you were only powerful when things were easy. And now, in the absence of momentum, you begin to question everything. But pause, because this moment, this exact moment, is where most people lose the lure before it even begins. Not because life is harder for them, but because they misunderstand what hardship is doing. They see pain as punishment. They see struggle as a sign to stop. They see resistance as rejection. But the Stoic mind sees something else entirely. It sees pressure as refinement. It sees chaos as training. It sees adversity not as an obstacle, but as the path itself. You are not stuck in life's toughest moment. You are being introduced to it. There's a difference. One makes you a victim. The other makes you a participant. And once you shift into participation, everything changes. Because now you are no longer asking, why is this happening to me? You are asking, what is this shaping me into? Understand this clearly. Life does not distribute difficulty equally. It distributes responsibility selectively. The heavier the weight, the more it is preparing you to carry. But the untrained mind interprets that weight as unfair. The Stoic mind interprets it as necessary. Right now, you may feel like you're losing control. Like everything around you is unpredictable. But control was never where you thought it was. You cannot control outcomes. You cannot control timing. You cannot control how others act, respond, or leave. The more you try, the more frustrated you become. The more attached you are to controlling external events, the more powerless you feel when they don't obey. Stoic wisdom cuts through that illusion immediately. It separates life into two domains: what is within your control, and what is not. And most of what disturbs you exists in the second category. The past, gone. The future, uncertain. Other people's opinions, unstable. External success, variable. All of it outside your control. Now look at what remains. Your thoughts, your decisions, your discipline, your response. That is your territory. That is your ground. That is where power exists. But here's where most people fail. They acknowledge this idea intellectually, but they don't apply it under pressure. When life becomes difficult, they abandon control of the only thing they actually own, their response. They react emotionally. They spiral mentally. They delay action. And then they wonder why things worsen. The Stoic does the opposite. When everything external becomes chaotic, they become more deliberate internally. When life becomes uncertain, they become more precise. When pressure increases, they narrow their focus. They do not expand their attention across everything that is going wrong. They compress it into what can still be done. Think about that. When everything feels overwhelming, your instinct is to think about everything at once. That's what creates paralysis. Too many problems. Too many unknowns. Too many variables. The mind overloads and shuts down. But the Stoic mind refuses to carry everything at once. It isolates. It selects. It asks a different question. Not, how do I fix my entire life? But, what is the next action within my control? That question is not small. It is surgical. It cuts through chaos. It removes the unnecessary. It forces clarity. Because even in the worst moment of your life, there is always one action you can take. One decision you can make. One step forward that belongs entirely to you. And here is the truth most people avoid. Your life does not collapse all at once. It collapses in moments where you choose inaction over action. Where you choose avoidance over confrontation. Where you choose comfort over discipline. You don't lose your future in one event. You lose it in small, repeated decisions to not act when it matters. So when life becomes difficult, the question is not whether you will suffer. You will. The question is whether your suffering will produce strength or decay. Because suffering, by itself, is neutral. It does not automatically improve you. It amplifies who you already are. If you are undisciplined, suffering will expose it. If you are weak in mindset, suffering will magnify it. But if you are deliberate, if you are focused, if you are willing to endure without breaking your standards, suffering becomes transformation. This is why the Stoics trained their minds before hardship arrived. They understood something most people ignore. You don't rise to the level of your ambition when life gets hard. You fall to the level of your preparation. So the real question becomes, how do you navigate when you're already inside the storm? When preparation feels too late, when the pressure is already here, you start by removing illusion. You stop expecting life to be fair. You stop expecting ease. You stop expecting progress to feel good. Because those expectations create resistance. And resistance creates suffering on top of suffering. Instead, you accept reality as it is. Not as you wish it to be. Not as it used to be. As it is right now. This moment. This condition. This difficulty. Acceptance is not weakness. It is clarity. It is the moment you stop wasting energy arguing with reality and start using that energy to act within it. And once you accept reality, you move differently. You stop complaining. You stop comparing. You stop waiting. You start executing, even if the execution is small. Even if it feels insignificant. Because small, controlled actions are how you rebuild stability. Imagine your life as collapsing structure. Most people panic and try to fix everything at once. They reinforce nothing. The Stoic reinforces one pillar at a time. Slowly, deliberately, consistently, until the structure stabilizes again. This is not fast. This is not glamorous. This is not visible to others. But it works, every time. Now understand something deeper. The hardest moments of your life are not random interruptions. They are filters. They separate who you say you are from who you actually are. It's easy to claim discipline when things are easy. It's easy to claim focus when there's no distraction. It's easy to claim strength when there's no pressure. But when everything is stripped away, when comfort disappears, when certainty is gone, what remains is truth. And that truth is either built on discipline or it collapses under pressure. So instead of asking how to escape this moment, ask a more dangerous question: who am I choosing to become inside this? Because that answer determines everything that follows. Most people wait for the storm to pass before they act. The Stoic acts inside the storm. Not because it's comfortable, not because it's easy, but because they understand that waiting weakens them. Action strengthens them. And action does not mean solving everything. It means refusing to surrender your agency. Refusing to give up control of your mind. Refusing to let circumstances dictate your standards. Right now, you still have control over how you think. Over what you do next. Over whether you move or remain still. That control may feel small, but it is everything. Because once you lose control of your response, you lose control of your direction. And direction is what determines outcome. Not luck, not timing, direction. So when life feels like it's closing in, narrow your focus. Reduce the noise. Identify what is still within your control and act on it immediately. Not later, not when you feel ready. Now, because readiness is a myth. Clarity comes from action, not before it. Strength comes from pressure, not in its absence. And progress comes from movement, not intention. You are not meant to avoid life's toughest times. You are meant to navigate them. And navigation requires discipline, awareness, and a refusal to surrender your internal ground, no matter what happens externally. This is where the shift begins. Not outside you, inside you. You don't rise out of difficulty by waiting for relief. You rise by changing how you carry it. The weight does not disappear. Your capacity increases. That is the distinction most people miss. They spend their energy trying to eliminate pressure instead of expanding their ability to withstand it. And in doing so, they remain fragile. The Stoic does not negotiate with hardship. The Stoic adapts to it. Right now, your mind is likely searching for escape routes. Quick fixes. Immediate relief. Something that removes discomfort without demanding growth. That instinct is natural, but it is also the reason most people stay trapped. Because anything that offers instant comfort usually delays long-term progress. Distraction feels good, but it compounds the problem. Avoidance feels safe, but it strengthens fear. Complaining feels justified, but it weakens discipline. So the question becomes sharper. What do you do when nothing feels like it's working? When effort produces no visible result? When time passes and you feel like you're standing still? You adjust your measurement. Most people measure progress externally. Results, recognition, outcomes. But during life's toughest phases, external feedback becomes unreliable. Progress is happening internally long before it becomes visible. Your patience is increasing. Your emotional control is stabilizing. Your discipline is being tested and refined. But because you cannot see these changes immediately, you assume nothing is happening. That assumption leads to frustration. Frustration leads to quitting. The Stoic rejects that timeline. They measure progress by adherence to principle, not immediate outcome. Did you act with discipline today? Did you maintain control over your response? Did you move forward, even slightly, despite resistance? That is progress. Quiet, invisible, but real. This shift is critical, because when you detach your sense of progress from immediate results, you become consistent. And consistency, over time, produces outcomes that intensity never could. Consider this carefully. Intensity is easy when motivation is high. Anyone can push hard for a short period. But life's toughest moments are not short bursts. They are extended tests, weeks, months, sometimes longer. In those moments, intensity fades. What remains is discipline, and discipline is built through repetition, not emotion. So instead of asking yourself, how do I fix everything? You ask, can I execute today, regardless of how I feel? That question removes emotion from the equation. It removes excuses. It forces a binary decision. Act or don't act. Move or remain still. And here is where most people confront the truth they try to avoid. They are not blocked by circumstance. They are blocked by inconsistency. You can have limited resources and still make progress. You can face uncertainty and still take action. You can experience doubt and still move forward. But if your actions are inconsistent, your progress will always be unstable. So the Stoic simplifies everything. They reduce life to a series of controlled actions repeated daily. No drama, no overthinking, just execution. Wake up, do what needs to be done. Control your response. Repeat. This may sound basic. It is. But simplicity is not weakness. It is precision. Complexity creates hesitation. Simplicity creates movement. Now look deeper into your current struggle. There is something you are avoiding. Something you know you should do, but you delay. Maybe it's a decision. Maybe it's a difficult conversation. Maybe it's a task that requires effort you don't feel ready to give. That avoidance is not random. It is a signal. It points directly to the area where growth is required. And the longer you avoid it, the stronger the resistance becomes. So instead of asking how to feel ready, ask a more direct question. What am I avoiding right now? That question cuts through illusion. It removes distraction. It forces confrontation. Because clarity is not always comfortable. But it is necessary. Once you identify what you're avoiding, you act on it immediately. Not completely, not perfectly, but deliberately. You reduce the task to its smallest executable form and you begin. This is how resistance is broken. Not by waiting for it to disappear, but by moving through it. Understand this clearly. Resistance does not mean stop. Resistance means this is where the work is. Most people interpret discomfort as a warning sign. The Stoic interprets it as direction. If something feels difficult, it is likely meaningful. If something creates internal friction, it is likely necessary. So instead of retreating, you lean in. Not recklessly, but intentionally. You engage with the difficulty. You expose yourself to it. You become familiar with it. And over time, what once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. This is how strength is built. Not in comfort, but in repeated exposure to challenge. Now consider another layer. Your thoughts during difficult times are not neutral. They either reinforce your strength or weaken it. If your internal dialogue is filled with doubt, frustration, and negativity, you are actively working against yourself. You are amplifying the difficulty instead of navigating it. The Stoic mind disciplines thought, not by pretending everything is fine, but by directing focus toward what is useful. Instead of saying, this is too much, the Stoic asks, what is required of me right now? That shift matters, because one statement creates helplessness. The other creates responsibility, and responsibility is where power exists. When you take responsibility, even in situations you did not create, you reclaim control over your response. You stop being passive, you become active. This does not mean blaming yourself for everything. It means recognizing that your response is always yours to control. Now apply this to your current situation. Whatever you are facing, ask yourself, what is required of me in this moment? Not tomorrow, not next week, now. The answer may be simple. Focus, patience, discipline, action, endurance. Whatever it is, execute it without overcomplicating the process. Because overthinking delays action, and delay strengthens the very state you are trying to escape. Another mistake people make during difficult times is expecting constant progress. They assume that every day should feel productive, that every effort should produce visible results. When that doesn't happen, they become discouraged. But progress is not linear. It moves in patterns. There are periods of visible growth and periods of quiet consolidation. During consolidation, it may feel like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, structure is forming. Skills are stabilizing. Habits are reinforcing. If you abandon the process during these quiet phases, you reset your progress. You return to the beginning. So patience becomes essential, not passive waiting, but active endurance. Continuing to act even when results are delayed. Continuing to show up even when recognition is absent. Continuing to execute even when motivation is gone. This is where most people quit. Not at the beginning, but in the middle. When the excitement fades and the outcome is not yet visible. The Stoic does not quit in the middle. They understand that the middle is where separation happens. Where most people stop and a few continue. And those who continue build something different. Not just results, but resilience. Not just success, but stability. Now bring this back to your reality. You are in a moment that feels heavy, uncertain, difficult, but it is also defining. Every action you take right now is shaping your response pattern for the future. If you choose avoidance, you reinforce avoidance. If you choose discipline, you reinforce discipline. Your brain learns from repetition, not intention, not desire, action. So the decision you make in this moment is not isolated. It compounds. It becomes part of who you are. This is why Stoic practice is not about occasional strength. It is about consistent alignment with principle. Acting in accordance with what is right, regardless of how you feel. Feelings fluctuate. Principles do not. So when you feel overwhelmed, you don't wait for the feeling to pass. You act according to principle anyway. When you feel doubt, you don't wait for confidence. You execute anyway. When you feel resistance, you don't retreat. You move through it. This is discipline. And discipline is what carries you through when everything else fails. Now understand something critical. You are not expected to feel strong during life's toughest times. You are expected to act strong. There is a difference. Feelings are unreliable. They change constantly. If you rely on them, your actions become inconsistent. But if you anchor your actions to principle, you remain stable regardless of emotional state. So remove the expectation of feeling ready. Remove the expectation of feeling motivated. Replace it with a standard. Act regardless. Because in the end, your life is not shaped by what you feel. It is shaped by what you repeatedly do. And right now, in this difficult moment, you have a choice. Not a comfortable one, not an easy one, but a clear one. You either allow this moment to weaken you, or you use it to build something stronger. There is no neutral outcome. You are still looking for a moment when everything aligns. When the pressure eases, when your mind clears, when your energy returns, when the path feels obvious. That moment rarely comes, and waiting for it keeps you in place longer than the difficulty itself ever would. The truth is more direct. Alignment is created through action, not discovered before it. Clarity is a result, not a prerequisite. So instead of asking when you will feel ready, you shift the question again. What can I do with what I have, in the condition I am in, right now? That question removes excuses. It eliminates the gap between where you are and where you think you need to be. Because the gap is often imagined. You already have enough to begin. Not enough to finish, but enough to start. And starting is what changes everything. Most people underestimate the power of initiation. They think progress comes from large, decisive moves. But in reality, progress begins with small, controlled entries into action. The first step is not about impact. It is about access. Once you enter the process, you gain information. Once you gain information, you adjust. Once you adjust, you improve. But if you never enter, you remain in theory. And theory creates the illusion of effort without producing any result. Right now, there is something in your life that remains theoretical. A plan you keep refining. A decision you keep delaying. A task you keep preparing for. And every day you stay in preparation, you convince yourself that you are progressing. But preparation without execution becomes avoidance. So the correction is simple, but not easy. You reduce preparation. You increase execution. You accept that your first attempts will be imperfect. And you move anyway. This is where another Stoic principle becomes essential. You do not control whether your action succeeds. You control whether it is performed with intention and discipline. The outcome is not your responsibility. The effort is. That distinction removes a significant amount of pressure. Because most hesitation comes from attaching your identity to the result. If it fails, you interpret it as personal failure. If it succeeds, you attach your worth to it. Both create instability. The Stoic detaches identity from outcome. They focus entirely on the quality of their action. Was it deliberate? Was it disciplined? Was it aligned with principle? If the answer is yes, then the action is valid, regardless of result. This creates a form of internal stability that most people never develop. Because when your sense of progress depends on external results, you are constantly fluctuating. One success creates confidence. One failure destroys it. But when your sense of progress depends on your actions, you remain steady. Because your actions are within your control. Now consider how this applies to difficulty. When life becomes hard, outcomes become less predictable. Effort does not always produce immediate reward. This is where people lose momentum. They stop acting because they stop seeing results. But if you measure your progress by your actions, not your outcomes, you continue. And continuing is what eventually produces results. There is a period in every difficult phase where your actions feel disconnected from any visible progress. This is the point where most people quit. Not because they are incapable, but because they misinterpret the silence. They assume that nothing is happening. But something is happening. You are building capacity. You are reinforcing discipline. You are strengthening your ability to endure without immediate reward. These are not visible, but they are essential. Without them, even if success arrives, you cannot sustain it. So the Stoic remains consistent in that silence. They continue to act, not because they are certain of the outcome, but because they are committed to the process. Now bring your attention to another critical factor. Energy. During difficult times, your energy is limited. Not just physical energy, but mental energy. Decision-making becomes harder. Focus becomes weaker. Distractions become more appealing. If you do not manage your energy deliberately, you will waste it on things that do not move you forward. And once it is gone, you default to inaction. So you must become selective. You cannot afford to give your attention to everything. You cannot engage with every thought, every distraction, every emotional reaction. You choose what deserves your energy. And once you choose, you commit fully. This requires discipline, because your mind will attempt to drift. It will look for easier paths. It will suggest alternatives that feel more comfortable. But comfort, in this context, is not your objective. Progress is. So you redirect your focus repeatedly. Not once, not twice, continuously. Each time your mind drifts, you bring it back. Each time you feel the urge to avoid it, you confront it. Each time you consider stopping, you continue. This repetition is what builds mental endurance. Not a single act of strength, but consistent redirection over time. Now consider the role of time. When you are in a difficult phase, time feels distorted. Progress feels slow. Effort feels prolonged. You begin to question whether it is worth it. Whether you are wasting time. But time is not the problem. Your perception of time is. You expect rapid results in situations that require gradual development. You expect immediate clarity in situations that require exploration. You expect stability in situations that are inherently unstable. These expectations create frustration, so you adjust your relationship with time. You stop demanding immediate returns. You start investing in long-term outcomes. You accept that some phases of life are designed to test endurance, not speed. This shift reduces pressure. It allows you to operate without constant disappointment. Because you are no longer expecting something unrealistic. Now you are aligned with the process. And once you align with the process, you become more effective. Because your energy is no longer wasted on frustration. It is directed toward execution. Another layer to understand is perception of difficulty. The same situation can be experienced in two different ways. One person sees it as overwhelming. Another sees it as manageable. The difference is not the situation. It is the interpretation. If you label something as overwhelming, your mind reacts accordingly. It reduces your perceived ability to handle it. It increases hesitation. It amplifies stress. But if you label it as challenging but manageable, your mind responds differently. It engages. It looks for solutions. It maintains a level of control. So you must be precise with how you interpret your situation. Not in a way that denies reality, but in a way that supports action. You are not lying to yourself. You are choosing a perspective that enables movement instead of paralysis. This is a form of mental discipline. And it requires practice. Because your default patterns will attempt to pull you back into negative interpretation. Each time that happens, you correct it. Not emotionally, logically. What is actually happening? What is within my control? What is the next step? These questions ground you. They bring you back to reality. Not the exaggerated version your mind creates, but the actual situation in front of you. And reality, when stripped of exaggeration, is always more manageable than it first appears. Now, understand this clearly. You are not trying to eliminate difficulty. You are trying to become effective within it. Because difficulty is not temporary in life. It returns in different forms, different intensities, different contexts. If your strategy is to wait for ease, you will always be waiting. But if your strategy is to build the capacity to act under pressure, you become independent of circumstance. This is the core of Stoic resilience. Not the absence of struggle, but the ability to function despite it. And that ability is built through repeated exposure, disciplined response, and consistent action. Right now, you are in a phase that demands this from you. Not comfort, not ease, capacity. So you respond accordingly. You act with what you have. You focus on what you control. You measure progress by action. You manage your energy deliberately. You align with time instead of resisting it. You interpret difficulty in a way that supports execution. This is how you navigate. Not by escaping the storm, but by learning how to move within it without losing direction. Because direction is what determines where you end up. And direction is maintained through disciplined action, not emotional stability. Your emotions will fluctuate. Your circumstances will shift. But your direction can remain constant if your actions are aligned. And that alignment is a choice. Repeated daily, under pressure, without guarantee. That is what separates those who break from those who adapt. There comes a point in every difficult phase where the external struggle is no longer the main challenge. The real battle shifts inward. Not against circumstances, but against your own mind. The fatigue builds. The repetition feels endless. The lack of visible progress starts to erode certainty. And this is where most people begin to negotiate with themselves. They lower standards. They justify delays. They create reasons to slow down. Not because they lack ability, but because they lack endurance. Endurance is not just physical. It is mental. It is the ability to continue without constant reinforcement. Without praise, without immediate reward. It is the ability to operate in silence, where effort is not recognized and progress is not obvious. This is where the Stoic separates from the rest. They do not depend on external validation to continue. They build internal validation through adherence to principle. If the action is correct, they execute. Whether anyone sees it or not becomes irrelevant. This is a critical shift. Because when your actions depend on recognition, your consistency becomes unstable. You perform when observed. You slow down when unnoticed. Over time, this creates inconsistency. But when your actions depend on principle, you become reliable. You execute regardless of environment. And reliability, over time, compounds into results that appear effortless to others but are built through disciplined repetition. Now consider what happens when you remove the need for immediate reward. Your focus sharpens. Your tolerance for discomfort increases. Your ability to stay engaged improves. Because you are no longer distracted by the question, is this working yet? You replace it with, am I doing what is required? That question keeps you grounded. It removes speculation. It directs your attention toward action. This is especially important when progress is slow. Because slow progress creates doubt. Doubt leads to hesitation. Hesitation leads to inconsistency. And inconsistency resets progress. So the Stoic eliminates the cycle early. They refuse to engage with doubt in a way that interrupts action. They acknowledge it, but they do not obey it. This distinction matters, because you will feel doubt. You will question your path. You will experience moments where stopping feels logical. But logic, in those moments, is often influenced by discomfort, not truth. So instead of asking whether you feel like continuing, you ask whether continuing aligns with your objective. If it does, you continue. Simple, direct, effective. Now shift your attention to another internal challenge, emotional reaction. During life's toughest times, your emotional state becomes volatile. Frustration, anger, disappointment, uncertainty. These emotions are not problems by themselves. They are responses. The problem arises when they dictate your actions. If frustration leads to impulsive decisions, you lose control. If disappointment leads to withdrawal, you lose momentum. If anger leads to distraction, you lose focus. So the objective is not to eliminate emotion. It is to prevent emotion from controlling behavior. The Stoic achieves this through awareness and delay. When an emotional reaction occurs, they do not act immediately. They observe. They create space between the stimulus and the response. That space is where control exists. Most people collapse that space. They react instantly, and instant reactions are rarely aligned with long-term objectives. So you train yourself to pause. Not indefinitely, but long enough to regain clarity. In that pause, you ask, what action aligns with my objective, not my emotion? That question recenters you. It shifts control back to deliberate thinking. Now, consider how this applies in real time. You experience a setback. Something does not go as planned. Your immediate reaction may be frustration or discouragement. If you act on that reaction, you may stop working, shift focus, or abandon the process entirely. But if you pause, observe the reaction, and then choose your response deliberately, you maintain direction. You continue. This is not suppression. It is control. And control is what allows you to remain effective under pressure. Now, another factor that becomes critical during difficult times is environment. Not just physical environment, but informational and social environment. What you consume, who you interact with, what you expose your mind to. If your environment is filled with negativity, distraction, or inconsistency, it will influence your behavior. Not immediately, but gradually. So you must be selective. You reduce exposure to anything that weakens focus. You limit interaction with influences that encourage avoidance or doubt. You create conditions that support discipline. This does not mean isolating yourself completely. It means being intentional, because your environment either reinforces your objective or undermines it. There is no neutral effect. Now look at your current environment. Does it support your ability to act consistently? Or does it create friction? If it creates friction, you adjust it. Not perfectly, but deliberately. Remove distractions. Simplify your space. Structure your time. These adjustments may seem small, but they reduce resistance. And reduced resistance increases consistency. Now, bring your attention to identity. During prolonged difficulty, your sense of identity can weaken. You begin to question who you are. Whether you are capable, whether you are progressing. This uncertainty creates instability. Because your actions are influenced by how you see yourself. If you see yourself as someone who is struggling, your actions reflect that. If you see yourself as someone who is adapting, your actions align with that. So you must define your identity deliberately. Not based on current results, but based on chosen standards. I am someone who acts regardless of difficulty. I am someone who maintains discipline under pressure. I am someone who continues when others stop. These are not affirmations for comfort. They are standards for behavior. And once you define them, you act accordingly. Because identity is not what you say. It is what you repeatedly do. Each action either reinforces or contradicts your identity. So when you act with discipline, even in small ways, you strengthen that identity. When you avoid, you weaken it. This is why consistency matters. Not just for results, but for self-perception. Now, consider the long-term effect of this approach. You move through difficulty with controlled actions. You maintain direction despite uncertainty. You manage your energy, your focus, your response. Over time, something changes. Not suddenly, but gradually. The same situations that once felt overwhelming begin to feel manageable. The same level of pressure produces less reaction. The same tasks require less effort to initiate. This is adaptation, and adaptation is the result of repeated exposure combined with disciplined response. You do not eliminate difficulty. You become stronger within it. Now, here is the part most people overlook. Once you develop this level of control, your relationship with difficulty changes. You no longer see it as something to avoid. You see it as something that reveals opportunity. Not immediate opportunity, but long-term advantage. Because every difficult phase you navigate successfully increases your capacity. And increased capacity allows you to handle situations that others can't. This creates separation. While others hesitate, you act. While others withdraw, you continue. While others wait for clarity, you create it through movement. And over time, this difference compounds into results that appear disproportionate. But they are not. They are the outcome of consistent alignment with principle under pressure. Now return to your current situation. You are still in it. The difficulty has not disappeared. The uncertainty remains, but you are not the same as you were at the beginning. You have more awareness, more control, more clarity on what is required. So the objective now is not to restart. It is to continue with greater precision. Refine your actions. Eliminate what is unnecessary. Focus on what produces movement. Do not add complexity. Remove it. Do not seek new strategies constantly. Execute the ones you already know. Because knowledge is not the limiting factor. Application is. Now, ask yourself again, what is required of me right now? And then act on it immediately. Not because it feels right, but because it is right. This is how you maintain direction through extended difficulty. Not through intensity, but through consistency. Not through emotion, but through discipline. And if you continue long enough, something inevitable happens. The situation changes, not always in the way you expected, not always in the time frame you wanted, but it changes, because sustained, directed action alters outcomes. And when that shift occurs, when the pressure begins to ease, when progress becomes visible again, most people relax too early. They abandon the discipline that carried them through. The Stoic does not. They maintain the same standards. Because they understand that the habits built during difficulty are what sustain success when conditions improve. So they continue, and that continuation is what transforms temporary progress into lasting stability. You are still in the process. At this stage, the difficulty is no longer unfamiliar. It has become part of your environment. The pressure is still present, but your reaction to it has changed. What once triggered hesitation now requires only adjustment. What once felt overwhelming now demands focus. This is not because the situation became easier. It is because you became more precise. Precision is the next level. Not just acting, but acting correctly. Not just moving, but moving with intention. Most people, once they push past the initial resistance, fall into a different trap. They begin to act, but without direction. They stay busy, but not effective. They mistake movement for progress. But movement without direction creates exhaustion without results. So now the question evolves again. Not, am I acting? But, is my action aligned? Alignment means every action serves a purpose. It contributes to movement. It reinforces your objective. It is not random. It is not reactive. It is deliberate. To achieve this, you must remove what does not contribute. There are actions you take that feel productive but produce no real outcome. Checking, adjusting, overanalyzing, preparing beyond necessity. These actions create the illusion of control, but they delay real progress. So you begin eliminating them. You simplify your process. You identify the few actions that actually move things forward and you prioritize them relentlessly. Everything else becomes secondary or irrelevant. This requires discipline, because your mind will resist simplicity. It will attempt to complicate the process, to add more, to create the sense that more effort equals more progress. But in reality, focused effort produces more than scattered effort. So you reduce tasks, you reduce decisions, you reduce distractions, and by reducing, you increase clarity. Now your energy is concentrated. Your attention is not divided. Your actions become more effective. This is where real progress begins to accelerate. Not because you are doing more, but because you are doing what matters. Now, consider another shift that occurs here. Responsibility becomes heavier. At the beginning, You were reacting to difficulty. Now you are shaping your response deliberately. And that means you can no longer rely on circumstance as an excuse. This is where many people hesitate again. Because full responsibility removes all external justification. If you fail to act, it is not because of conditions. It is because of choice. That level of ownership is uncomfortable. But it is also where control becomes complete. Because once you accept full responsibility for your actions, you eliminate the possibility of passivity. You become the determining factor. Not in everything, but in your direction. And direction is what determines where you end up. Now, bring attention to consistency again, but at a deeper level. Consistency is not just repeating actions. It is repeating the right actions under varying conditions. When things are calm, consistency is easy. When things are chaotic, consistency is tested. This is where your previous discipline becomes critical. You have already trained yourself to act without relying on motivation. Now you apply that training under pressure. You maintain your standards, even when tired, even when uncertain, even when results are delayed. Because standards are not conditional. If they change based on how you feel, they are not standards. They are preferences, so you hold them. This does not mean perfection. It means commitment. There will be days where execution is not ideal, where focus is weaker, where output is lower. But even on those days, you act. You maintain the baseline. That baseline is what prevents regression. Without it, you fall back into inconsistency. And inconsistency resets progress. Now, consider the role of setbacks at this stage. Setbacks do not disappear. They change form. Instead of large, obvious failures, they become smaller disruptions. Delays, mistakes, unexpected obstacles. If you react to these emotionally, you lose rhythm. So you treat them differently. A setback is not a signal to stop. It is a signal to adjust. You analyze it briefly. What caused it? What can be corrected? And then you return to action. No extended frustration. No overanalysis. Just correction and continuation. This keeps momentum intact. Because momentum is fragile. It is built slowly and lost quickly. So your objective is to protect it. Every decision you make either supports momentum or disrupts it. Scrolling instead of acting disrupts it. Overthinking instead of executing disrupts it. Waiting instead of moving disrupts it. So you become protective of your time and attention. You treat them as limited resources. Because they are. Now, shift to another element that becomes clearer at this stage. You begin to see patterns. Patterns in your behavior. Patterns in your thinking. Patterns in your environment. You notice when you tend to lose focus. When you tend to hesitate. When your energy drops. This awareness allows you to anticipate rather than react. If you know your focus drops at a certain time, you plan around it. If you know certain distractions pull you away, you remove them in advance. If you know certain thoughts lead to hesitation, you interrupt them early. This is proactive discipline. Instead of constantly recovering from mistakes, you reduce their occurrence. And over time, this creates stability. Now your progress is not constantly interrupted. It becomes more consistent, more predictable. This is where you begin to feel control again. Not over everything, but over your process. And control over process is more valuable than control over outcome. Because if your process is effective, outcomes follow. Now, consider the mental state required to sustain this level of execution. It is not constant intensity. That is unsustainable. It is controlled focus. You engage fully when acting. You disengage when resting. Most people fail here. They either work without focus or rest without detachment. When working, their mind drifts. When resting, their mind remains engaged with the problem. This creates constant fatigue, so you separate the two. When you work, you focus completely. No distraction, no divided attention. When you rest, you actually rest. You allow recovery. This balance maintains energy over long periods. Because navigating difficult times is not a short effort. It requires sustained capacity. Now, bring this back to your current position. You are no longer at the beginning. You have moved through resistance, built discipline, created some level of consistency. Now the task is refinement. Do less, but do it better. Focus more, but on fewer things. Act consistently, but with greater precision. This is how you convert effort into results. And results will come. Not instantly, but inevitably. Because sustained, aligned action produces outcomes. It cannot not produce them. The timeline may vary, the form may differ, but the result arrives, and when it does, it will not feel sudden. It will feel earned, because every step, every decision, every moment of discipline contributed to it. Now understand this clearly. You are not just navigating a difficult phase. You are building a system of thinking, a system of acting, a system of responding, and once that system is built, it applies to every future challenge. So this moment is not isolated. It is foundational. The way you act now determines how you handle what comes next. And what comes next will require even greater capacity. So you continue building, not for immediate relief, but for long-term strength. Now ask yourself again, what is the next aligned action? Not the easiest, not the most comfortable, the most aligned, and then execute it without delay. Because delay weakens clarity, action strengthens it. You have already come this far. At this point, the difficulty is no longer testing whether you can start. It is testing whether you can sustain. Starting requires a decision, sustaining requires structure, and without structure, even the strongest intentions collapse under pressure. So now you shift from relying on willpower to building systems. Because willpower fluctuates, systems remain. Most people try to push through hard phases by forcing themselves to act repeatedly through sheer effort. That works briefly. Then fatigue builds, discipline weakens, and they fall back into inconsistency. Not because they lack strength, but because they lack structure. Structure removes the need to decide constantly. It reduces friction. It creates predictability in your actions. And predictability is what allows you to continue even when your energy is low. So you begin organizing your behavior, not in a complex way, but in a repeatable way. You define when you act. You define what you act on. You define how long you stay engaged. This removes uncertainty, and uncertainty is one of the biggest sources of hesitation. When you know exactly what needs to be done and when, you don't negotiate with yourself. You execute. Now, understand this clearly. The purpose of structure is not to restrict you. It is to protect your focus. Because without structure, your attention is constantly pulled in different directions. You respond to whatever feels urgent, whatever appears in front of you, whatever distracts you. And this reactive behavior destroys consistency. So you become proactive. You decide in advance what matters. And you commit to it. This commitment must be simple. If it is too complex, you will not sustain it. So you focus on a small number of high-impact actions, the ones that directly contribute to progress, and you repeat them daily. This repetition creates rhythm, and rhythm is what stabilizes your effort. Now, once rhythm is established, something important happens. Resistance decreases, not because the tasks become easier, but because they become familiar. Your mind no longer treats them as threats. It recognizes them as routine. This is how discipline becomes automatic. Not through force, but through repetition. At the beginning, every action requires effort. Over time, the same actions require less energy. This is efficiency, and efficiency allows you to sustain effort over longer periods without exhaustion. Now consider another layer: friction. Friction is anything that makes action harder than it needs to be. Unclear tasks, cluttered environments, unstructured time, excessive decisions, each of these increases resistance. So your objective is to reduce friction wherever possible. You simplify your environment. You prepare your tools in advance. You eliminate unnecessary choices. For example, if you know what task you will work on tomorrow, you decide it today. That removes the need to think about it later. This may seem minor, but it has a significant effect. Because each small reduction in friction makes action more likely, and increased likelihood of action leads to increased consistency. Now, bring attention to the concept of recovery. Sustained effort requires recovery. Without it, you burn out. And burnout resets progress more aggressively than inconsistency. So you must treat recovery as part of the process, not as a break from it. Recovery is not avoidance. It is preparation for continued action. But recovery must be intentional. Passive distraction does not restore energy effectively. It often drains it further. So you choose activities that actually allow your mind to reset. Silence, physical movement, limited engagement. You create space where your mind is not constantly processing tasks or problems. This allows your focus to return stronger. Now, understand this balance. Too much effort without recovery leads to burnout. Too much recovery without effort leads to stagnation. So you maintain equilibrium. Work with focus. Rest with intention. Repeat. This cycle sustains progress over long periods. Now, another challenge appears at this stage. Monotony. Repetition, while necessary, can feel repetitive, predictable, unexciting. This is where many people lose engagement. They seek novelty. They change strategies. They disrupt their own progress in search of something more stimulating. But novelty is not what produces results. Consistency does. So you accept monotony, not as a limitation, but as a requirement. You understand that repeating the right actions, even when they feel routine, is what builds mastery. Excitement is not required. Engagement is. And engagement comes from commitment, not constant stimulation. Now, shift your focus to feedback. As you continue acting, you begin to receive information. Not always in the form of results, but in the form of patterns. What works? What slows you down? What creates resistance? You use this information to refine your system. Not by making drastic changes, but by making small adjustments. If something consistently disrupts your focus, you remove or reduce it. If something improves your efficiency, you reinforce it. This iterative process improves your effectiveness over time. Now your system is not static. It evolves based on experience. And this evolution increases your ability to handle more complex challenges. Now, consider the long-term implication of what you are building. You are no longer dependent on motivation. You are no longer disrupted by minor setbacks. You are no longer reactive to every distraction. You have created a process that sustains itself. This is independence, not from difficulty, but from instability. Because your actions are no longer determined by how you feel or what happens externally. They are determined by your system, and that system operates regardless of circumstance. Now, bring this back to your current situation. The difficulty is still present, but your approach has changed. You are not reacting randomly. You are executing systematically. You know what to do. You know when to do it. You know how to adjust when necessary. This clarity removes hesitation. Now, the only requirement is continuation. Not perfection, not speed, continuation. Because stopping interrupts the system, and restarting always requires more effort than continuing. So you maintain the flow. Even on days where energy is low, you execute at a reduced level rather than stopping completely. This maintains continuity, and continuity is what compounds progress. Now, understand something critical. At this stage, the difference between success and failure is not knowledge. It is persistence. Most people have enough information to move forward. They lack the consistency to apply it over time. So your advantage is not what you know. It is what you do repeatedly. And repetition, guided by structure, produces results that appear gradual at first and then accelerate. This is the nature of compounding. Small actions, repeated consistently, produce outcomes that seem disproportionate to the effort invested. But they are not. They are the accumulation of disciplined execution. Now, ask yourself again, is my system strong enough to sustain me? If not, you strengthen it. Simplify further. Remove friction. Clarify actions. Then execute. Because in the end, navigating life's toughest times is not about finding a perfect strategy. It is about building a system that allows you to continue acting, regardless of how difficult the situation becomes. And once you have that system, you are no longer fragile. You are adaptable. You are consistent. You are in control of your direction. And direction, maintained over time, leads you exactly where you need to go. There is a final transition that happens when you have endured long enough, acted consistently enough, and refined your approach repeatedly. The difficulty that once defined your experience begins to lose its dominance. Not because it disappears, but because it no longer dictates your behavior. You are no longer reacting to hardship. You are operating through it. This is the point where most people expect relief to arrive as a reward. They expect clarity, ease, or immediate success. Sometimes it comes. Often, it doesn't arrive in the form they imagined. And if your expectation is tied to a specific outcome, you create another form of resistance. So you remove that expectation. You detach from the idea that your effort must immediately translate into a visible reward. Instead, you focus on stability, on maintaining what you have built, because what you have built is more valuable than any single result. You have built control over your response. You have built consistency in your actions. You have built a system that functions under pressure. These are not temporary gains. They are transferable assets. They apply to every situation that follows. Now, your objective is to preserve them. This is where many people make a critical mistake. Once they feel some level of progress, they relax their standards. They reintroduce distractions. They loosen their structure. They assume that because they have moved forward, they can afford to reduce discipline. But discipline is not just what gets you through difficulty. It is what sustains you after it. If you abandon it too early, you lose the stability you created. And you return to cycles of inconsistency. So instead of relaxing your standards, you stabilize them. You make your process sustainable. Not extreme, not rigid to the point of breaking, but consistent. You understand that long-term success is not built on intensity. It is built on repeatable behavior. Now, bring your attention to another shift. Awareness becomes sharper. Because you have gone through difficulty with intention, you begin to recognize early signs of instability. You notice when your focus starts to drift, when your discipline weakens, when distractions begin to reappear. And instead of ignoring these signs, you correct them immediately. This is what prevents regression. Most people only respond when problems become obvious. By that time, the disruption is already significant. But when you are aware, you act early. A small correction is easier than a large recovery. So you maintain vigilance, not in a tense or anxious way, but in a controlled, observant way. You monitor your behavior. You adjust when necessary. You stay aligned. Now, consider how your perception of hardship has changed. At the beginning, difficulty felt like an interruption. Something that should not be happening. Something to resist. Now, it feels different. You recognize it as part of the process. Not something to avoid, but something to navigate. This removes a significant amount of internal conflict. Because resistance to reality is what amplifies suffering. When you accept that difficulty is part of the path, you stop wasting energy wishing it away. You use that energy to move through it. This is efficiency at a mental level. Now, another important realization emerges. You begin to understand that control is limited, but influence is not. You cannot control outcomes completely. You cannot force results, but you can influence them through consistent, aligned action. This distinction keeps you grounded. You do not become arrogant when things improve, because you know outcomes are not fully controlled. You do not become discouraged when things slow down, because you know your actions still influence the direction. This balance creates stability. Now, consider the long-term perspective. The phase you are in right now will pass. Not because time alone changes things, but because your actions, sustained over time, alter the situation. When it passes, you will have a choice. You can return to old patterns, or you can continue operating at the level you have built. Most people return. They seek comfort. They reduce effort. They allow inconsistency to return gradually. And eventually, they find themselves back in difficulty, starting the process again from a lower level of control. But you do not need to repeat that cycle. You have already built something that can prevent it. So you continue, not with the same intensity, but with the same discipline. You maintain your structure. You protect your focus. You act consistently. Now, another layer becomes clear. Purpose. During difficult times, your focus was on survival, on maintaining direction, on executing despite resistance. Now, you can expand that focus. You begin to ask not just how to act, but why. Why this path? Why these actions? Why this standard? This clarity strengthens commitment, because when your actions are connected to a defined purpose, they become more resilient. You are no longer acting only out of necessity, but out of intention. And intention sustains effort over longer periods. Now, bring everything together. You started in uncertainty. You built awareness. You developed discipline. You created structure. You refined your process. You sustained action. Each step built on the previous one. And now, you have something most people never develop. A reliable way to navigate difficulty. Not a temporary solution, but a repeatable approach. So when future challenges arise, and they will, you do not start from zero. You apply the same principles. Focus on what you control. Act consistently. Manage your energy. Maintain discipline. Adjust when necessary. This becomes your default response. And because of that, each new challenge becomes less disruptive. Not easier, but more manageable. Now, consider the final question. Not, how do I avoid difficulty? Not, when will this end? But, who am I when things are difficult? Because that answer determines everything. If you are someone who reacts, avoids, and waits, you remain dependent on circumstance. If you are someone who acts, adapts, and continues, you become independent of it. And independence is the ultimate objective. Not control over everything, but control over yourself, your thoughts, your actions, your direction. Once you have that, no situation can completely destabilize you. It may challenge you, it may pressure you, it may slow you down, but it will not stop you. Because stopping is no longer your default. Continuing is. So now, there is nothing new to learn. Only something to apply, consistently, deliberately, without interruption. You have the awareness. You have the structure. You have the discipline. Now you continue. Not because it is easy. Not because it is comfortable. But because it is required. And because you have already proven that you can. There is one final layer that most people never reach, not because it is hidden, but because it requires complete honesty. Not partial honesty. Not convenient honesty. Complete. At every stage before this, you were adjusting your actions, your mindset, your structure. You were building discipline, refining focus, controlling your response. But now, the question becomes more direct. Are you actually living in alignment with what you know? Because knowledge without alignment creates internal conflict. And that conflict is subtle, but destructive. You know what requires your attention. You know what you've been avoiding. You know where you've been inconsistent. And yet, there are still moments where you choose comfort over execution. Not always, but enough to slow your progress. This is not a lack of understanding. It is a gap between knowing and doing. And that gap is where most people remain. They collect strategies. They understand principles. They watch, learn, plan. But when it comes to consistent application, they hesitate. They delay. They negotiate. So the final shift is not about learning something new. It is about removing that gap completely. No negotiation. When you identify the next action, you act. Immediately. Not after preparation. Not after overthinking. Immediately. Because delay is the mechanism that reintroduces doubt. The moment you pause unnecessarily, your mind begins to question. It introduces alternatives. It creates resistance. And suddenly, what was clear becomes uncertain again. So you eliminate unnecessary delay. You operate with decisiveness, not recklessness, but clarity followed by action. Now, understand what this requires. It requires you to stop protecting your comfort. Because comfort is not neutral. It competes with progress. Every time you choose comfort over action, you reinforce a pattern. And patterns, repeated over time, become identity. So if you repeatedly choose avoidance, you become someone who avoids. If you repeatedly choose action, you become someone who executes. There is no middle ground. This is why the final stage is not about effort. It is about identity consolidation. You are no longer trying to become disciplined. You are acting as someone who is disciplined. You are no longer trying to stay focused. You are operating as someone who controls their focus. You are no longer trying to navigate difficulty. You are someone who moves through it as a standard. And standards do not require motivation. They require consistency. Now, bring this into your current moment. There is something in front of you right now that requires action. Not later. Now. It may be small. It may be significant. But it is clear. And the only question is whether you will act on it or delay it. This is where everything you have built is tested. Not in theory. In practice. Because your future is not determined by what you understand. It is determined by what you execute repeatedly. Now consider the consequence of inaction, not emotionally, but logically. If you delay, nothing changes. If you avoid, nothing improves. If you wait, nothing progresses. Time passes regardless. The only variable is whether you move with it or remain in place. So the cost of inaction is not just lost time. It is reinforced stagnation. And stagnation, repeated, becomes a state. But the opposite is also true. Action, even small, creates movement. Movement creates momentum. Momentum creates results. This is not theory, it is sequence. So you stop thinking in large outcomes and start thinking in sequences. One action, followed by another, then another. No interruption. This is how everything is built. Not in single moments, but in continuous execution. Now, remove the idea that something extraordinary is required from you. It is not. What is required is consistency at a level most people refuse to maintain. That is the difference. Not intelligence, not talent, not opportunity. Consistency. And consistency is available to you at all times. It does not depend on external conditions. It depends on your decision. Now, understand this clearly. You will not always feel aligned. You will not always feel focused. You will not always feel capable. But those feelings are irrelevant to execution. Execution is a decision, and decisions, repeated, define outcomes. So you remove emotion as a prerequisite. You act regardless. Now, there's one more truth that must be accepted. No one is coming to create this for you. No one is going to enforce your discipline. No one is going to maintain your focus. No one is going to execute your actions. External support can exist, but responsibility remains with you. Complete responsibility. This is not meant to create pressure. It is meant to create clarity. Because once you accept full responsibility, you remove all excuses. And without excuses, action becomes the only option. Now, return to the present moment again. What is required of you right now? Not generally, specifically. Identify it, and once identified, act. Do not expand it. Do not complicate it. Do not delay it. Execute it. Because this moment is not separate from your future. It is part of it. Every action you take now contributes to what comes next. So treat it with precision. Now, understand the final shift completely. You are no longer reacting to life. You are no longer trying to figure everything out. You are no longer waiting for the right time. You are executing, consistently, deliberately, without interruption. This is control. Not control over everything, but control over what matters. Your actions, your direction, your standards. And once you have that, the external environment loses its ability to dictate your progress. It may slow you, it may challenge you, but it cannot stop you. Because stopping is a decision. And you are no longer making that decision. So now, there is nothing left to add. No new strategy, no new concept, only execution. You already know what to do. The only question is whether you will do it. Not tomorrow, not later. Now, move. Now that you've seen how to navigate life's toughest times with clarity and control, take a moment to reflect. Which insight from this journey will you act on first? Share it in the comments below. Your experience can inspire someone else who is stuck, just as this video is guiding you. If you found this perspective valuable, hit like to show your commitment to progress. It tells us you want more content that challenges your thinking and strengthens your discipline. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. This channel is dedicated to helping you forge mental strength, develop unwavering focus, and master the principles of Stoicism in everyday life. Each new video is a step forward in building your unstoppable self. And don't stop here. Continue the chain. Click the video on your screen now to explore the next lesson in mastering life's challenges. Keep momentum. Build consistency. Progress compounds when you take action, and every decision you make matters. Your next step starts now.